Well, I know for the last few weeks we've been warning you about getting emails from me asking you to buy gift cards and so on. Everybody knows not to respond to them, right? So one of our employees received one of those emails this week. It was kind of fun what he did. He responded, and he responded by saying, I certainly would be most willing to do whatever you need. Why don't you give me your credit card number, and I'll gladly go and buy the gift cards. To which the person replied, well, I was really hoping that you would put it on your credit card and I'll reimburse you later. To which he replied, no, it's really very easy. Just take a photograph of your credit card and email it to me and I'll be glad to do it. He didn't hear back. We've been warning you about all of these scams. Now I will warn you about a truth. Be very careful if I ever call you on the phone. Now we do have one parishioner, and they're actually in church right now, that said they actually got a scam call from St. Gregory's. Came up St. Greg's, but it was not our phone number, so be careful of that one. But if I ever really do call you, be very careful, because this is what I do. I will call and make a very nice conversation, and then there'll be a pregnant pause, which will force you to say, what is it that I can do for you? And that's what I want you to say, because I will reply, I'm so glad you offered. This is what I need. It's a trap. But it's no trap of what Jesus said to Bartimaeus, those same words. What is it that I can do for you? And Bartimaeus answers probably in a very obvious way. I mean, the man is blind and begging. Well, I want to see. It's a pretty obvious answer. Simple, basic, clear. But is there really something deeper that Bartimaeus was hoping for? Think in a deeper way, more than his physical sight, he was asking the Lord for freedom. Perhaps on the human level, freedom from being kept captive to living in darkness and having to survive by relying on others, begging for help. So more than the physical sight, I think he was looking for a freedom from those things, and maybe from something else as well. Ultimately, Bartimaeus is someone for us to reflect a little upon, because Bartimaeus, he is rather bold and clear and to the point with Jesus. And maybe that's the first question for us to ask ourselves. Are we like Bartimaeus? Are we bold when it comes to our relationship with Jesus? Are we clear? Are we clear in asking the Lord for whatever it is we need? Or are we sometimes maybe wishy-washy? Do we have that conviction in our relationship with the Lord in prayer that God can do all things? Or do we approach it in a wishy-washy way, if you're able to do something? Sometimes I honestly believe that we do not ask God for enough. Sometimes people say, well, I ask the Lord for too much. I'm not quite sure we do. Sometimes I question and wonder if we ask the Lord for enough. Maybe we need to be a little more bold and a little more convicted, a little more generous in what we are asking God to do for us. In those times that maybe we set the bar a little low, that we don't ask God for enough, maybe we need to take that step back and say, well, why? Why don't I ask the Lord full force, as did Bartimaeus? Why don't I ask full force? And maybe the answer is that we're afraid of what the answer will be. We're afraid, just as when someone finally gets to that question on the phone, Father, what is it that I can do for you? They might be a little afraid when I say, I'm glad you asked, you know? We might be afraid of ultimately what the Lord is going to do for us. A few thoughts about Bartimaeus, just a few random thoughts, really. First of all, Bartimaeus is not half-hearted. He's rather excited, he's rather confident, and he puts his entire self into the request. You know, he's calling out from the side of the road. People around him are telling him to be quiet, and it makes him shout out all the louder. He's rather excited, confident, and exuberant in calling out for the Lord. Another interesting thought is in Mark's gospel, and we're kind of winding down the church here and hearing Mark's gospel through this year. In Mark's gospel, do you realize that Bartimaeus is the first non-apostle to acknowledge who Jesus is? Now, we've had a couple of the apostles figure out that Jesus is the Messiah, the Savior, the Son of God. But up to this moment in time, no non-apostle, no one other than that circle of 12, ever acknowledged who Jesus was. And Bartimaeus does that very boldly and very clearly. How does he call out to Jesus? Does he call him by his first name? No. He says, Son of David, the messianic title. And just in him saying that, he is declaring who Jesus is. He is the first non-apostle in all of Mark's gospel and all of the healings to acknowledge who Jesus truly is. Similarly, this is the last of all of the miracles in Mark's gospel before Jesus enters into Jerusalem. He will perform some work there, but ultimately, the greatest work, he will die on the cross and rise from the dead. Why? What did we hear in the prophet Jeremiah in the first reading? We heard about the deliverance of Israel, and we heard about the blind being healed. Bartimaeus really stands as that symbol, if you will, that individual representing all of Israel, representing Jesus' deliverance as he's about to enter into Jerusalem, ultimately to die on the cross and rise from the dead. Bartimaeus knows who Jesus is. And Bartimaeus means what? Bar means son of, and Timaeus would be his father's name. So Bartimaeus means the son of Timaeus. What does the word Timaeus translate to mean? It means honor or honorable. He's the son of honor. Jesus heals Bartimaeus, and what do we hear Jesus then say? Go, your faith has saved you. Did Bartimaeus do what he was told? No. Jesus said, go. But what did Bartimaeus do? He followed Jesus. He didn't go anywhere other than to be a disciple of the Lord. So he didn't really do what Jesus said. He followed him, which really becomes perhaps the true meaning of honor, the son of honor. What is honorable? To be that disciple who follows the Lord. What was Bartimaeus' real healing? Well, the real healing was freedom. Not just the freedom from the darkness, not just the freedom from having to beg, but the freedom that he chose to follow Jesus as his way of life. And that path of discipleship does not bring constraints, as sometimes we think it does. It brings a great freedom. I love being a disciple of Christ because I don't really have to worry all that much. Any decision I need to make, I just need to go to the Bible or to the Catechism, and the answer is right there. It's a tremendous freedom. Nothing rests on myself. It completely rests in following the Lord. So, what is it that Jesus is saying to you today? What is it that Jesus is saying to me? What do you want me to do for you? I think each and every day the Lord says that to us. And the real question is, how do you answer the question for yourself? Is it something physical? Just like Bartimaeus was physically blind, he wanted to see. Is it something physical, or is it something deeper, like a freedom? And my guess is deep down for all of us, there is something we wish we were freed from. I remember a number of stories where people have lost almost everything, and it was a very interesting outcome. Many of you know Amy Petros, Amy and Norm Paolini, some 30 years ago began St. Luke's Mission of Mercy on Miller and Sycamore and the east side. And Amy is still there. Norm has gone home to the Lord. And I remember after Amy sold her home out here in Amherst, and she sold her restaurant, Amy's Place, still exists on Main Street. After she sold that, she bought the old St. Luke's Church, and they began the mission. They had a bill that they needed to pay, and she only had one thing left. She had her pickup truck, which she had inherited from her father. And she sold the truck. And I remember when that happened, as the people came and paid and drove the truck away, she wept bitterly. Now, you might think she wept bitterly because it was her father's truck and she was connected to her dad. It's the only thing she had left. You might think she maybe wept bitterly because she owned physically nothing anymore. But if you asked her, the real reason why she cried was because she said, for the first time, I really experienced freedom. I didn't have anything tying me down and keeping me away from being a disciple of Christ. Interesting perspective. One of my good friends, a brother priest, a number of years ago, here in our diocese, his rectory very tragically burned down to the ground. He was lucky to make it out alive. And I remember calling him the next day to see what he needed, to see what I could do for him. And he said, you know, I lost everything in the fire. There's absolutely nothing. The building is gone. Everything is gone. And I said, how do you feel? He said, you know, surprisingly, I feel very free because I had so much stuff that was weighing me down. I really feel free. I hear similar things from some parishioners when they downsize and they finally tackle all those projects. We're going to clean out all of this stuff, maybe ship out to the kids everything that they've left behind when they moved out 10, 20, 30 years ago, and put the house up for sale and go to something smaller. So it's very freeing to let go of these physical things. What freedom do you seek or need? Some of us maybe need a freedom from some type of an addiction. There's many kinds. Maybe we need a freedom in forgiveness, that we're holding something over someone, and actually that gives them power over us. And so we need the freedom to forgive so we can be free. Maybe it is physical things, or maybe it's just control over a situation. That's one that I have always struggled with in my life. I'm sure I've told you the story multiple times. A couple years before my mom died, she was very ill in the hospital. First 24 hours were touch and go, and I had gotten that call after being at the hospital all night. I got that call in the morning, you better get here, things are looking good, and I went, spent some more time, things seemed to stabilize. And I remember driving back home. I was on the Kensington Expressway. I called one of my friends and told him what had happened. And I burst out in tears. And he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm driving on the Kensington." He said, "Pull over. I'll come and get you." And I remember some 2 years later when my mom passed away. That morning, I was at Cardinal O'Hara High School where I was chaplain. I remember getting the phone call, and I remember going home. Called one of my friends to say what had happened. And he said, are you okay? And I said, surprisingly, I am. Said, I don't have to be in control anymore. I tried to control all of my mother's care and health and so on. Maybe we need to have a freedom from being in control and to allow the Lord to be the one who is in control. The list can go on. I think you can see where we're heading. So a simple question, how is your vision? You know, for Bartimaeus, his physical vision, he was blind. But his spiritual vision was 20/20, calling Jesus Son of David. What clouds your spiritual vision? And is that cloud caused by sin or sadness, stress, anger, hurt? The list can go on. Is there something that's giving your spiritual vision some cataract or blindness? Do you feel maybe like Bartimaeus sometimes that you just need to cry out, "Son of David, have pity on me"? Maybe do you feel like you're on the roadside of life waiting in need of some help? Or maybe do you need more grace in order to truly be free from whatever it is that might hold you back? Or are there people also on the side of the road with you as you're trying to call out, trying to get that freedom, who are holding you back? Just as the people kept saying quiet to Bartimaeus, but it caused him to shout out all the more. Do you have people in your life that hold you back from experiencing the true freedom of Christ? Or have you the great courage to continually call out, searching for that freedom, the same freedom that Bartimaeus himself discovered? That freedom ultimately is the life of honor as a disciple of Christ.